End of November, November last year.
Yeah.
And so he's been here a few months now, but obviously he can't find a job because everything's shut down.
Yeah.
So that's quite bad.
And he's a tech specialist, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, a really good programmer type thing, or?
Oh, he doesn't do programming. He calls himself a computer janitor. He does he fixes hardware is mostly what he does.
Okay.
So he's applied for a few jobs, but I mean, obviously they're saying we're not recruiting at the moment because of the coronavirus thing. So so he's a bit frustrated because he's sitting here twiddling his thumbs basically. So.
Yeah, guys, here's a life.
Okay. All right. Good. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to have Paul Kavanagh with us. We Ginger Doug for just a discussion about what we're currently going through and what the situation is, and what kind of the effect that might eventually have on the notion of on Scottish independence. So, first of all, welcome, Paul. Thanks for figured out being with us. So, just to begin, what do you make of this point in history that we're at? How do you interpret it? How do you see it?
What do you mean with the coronavirus?
Yeah.
Well, I think they should have seen it coming. It was widely predicted that, even though it's like, I sort of liken it to earthquakes in California.
Yeah.
You don't know when the big one's going to hit, but you know it's going to hit at some point.
Yeah.
So they prepare for it. So they knew. As long they've known for years that the government has known for years that some sort of virus epidemic would happen, but they haven't prepared adequately for it. They've cut funding to the bone. They've had 10 years of austerity. The very same people who clapped and cheered in the House of Commons when they refused to give nurses a pay rise are now telling us to go out and clap for the NHS. So it's a bit hypocritical of them. And meanwhile, of course, we're presiding over a death rate that's 800 and something a day already, and rising. I'm not sure what it is in France. But
it's broadly similar, I think. I'd have to check, but it's on a similar trajectory. We've been, we've had the lockdown for a while now, and you basically when you want to go out for specific purposes, an hour of exercise, going out to the shops, a necessarily family trip, like pick up the boys and stuff like that, and you have to put it on a piece of paper and sign it, and then if you're caught without it, it's like 130 euros first infraction, and it goes to like 800 for the second one, and then several thousand for the third one. So it's can be pretty convincing if you're caught. So but people seem to be abiding by it pretty well. There were some teenagers out, or some young people out sitting in the garden out there, but having a picnic, but I guess technically you're not supposed to do that, but it's been going pretty smoothly. The shops are well stocked, and and I think that they've also made. I'm not sure what they made provision for because they've closed everything. All the every restaurants, bars, and I believe that they are supporting. I think they might be paying the payroll of the people who have lost their jobs because of it, but I'm not exactly sure.
Here it's 80% if you were on the payroll and you're being laid off because of it. Spain, apparently it's 70% that people are getting.
And they're also talking about, aren't they talking about in Spain of rolling out a universal basic income as well? Yeah.
They're talking about that, and it's really something that I think that it's something that we should talk more about. In terms of things that we would like to see in an independent Scotland.
Absolutely.
The Tories have basically set their face against it. They don't want a universal basic income. Then, of course, they don't want anything that they think is going to damage profits and allow them to punish the poor.
And keep people in low wage unemployment, because if they had the option, if they were getting a universal basic income, they could not have to work, especially in
exactly. But it's also just even without this crisis that's going on, we're now living in a society where more and more people are relying on the gig economy. And 0 hours contracts and things like that. And if they had some sort of guaranteed income.
Yeah.
That this gives them the flexibility that the government are always talking about. They say, this is what we need in the labour force. That gives the labour force that flexibility, because it's all very well talking about flexibility. When you've got an annual income of £250,000 or whatever,
yeah,
you get a nice big house, like Boris Johnson, who thinks that £250,000 a year from the Telegraph is chicken feed, he describes it.
I'll be 1 second, keep talking, I'll be right back.
So it's one thing when it's doing that, but it's quite another when you're on a low income, you've got a family to feed, you live paycheck to paycheck, and that's the real problem that we've got at the moment with an awful lot of people, that they are literally living hand to mouth. And when some sort of crisis like this comes along, it makes it really difficult for them. But if they had a basic income, it would take a lot of the sting out of it. People at least wouldn't have to worry about keeping a roof over their head,
exactly,
keeping food on the table, and making sure that the kids are fed, and making sure that the electricity and the lights stay on. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that we really should talk a lot more about. Universal basic income. There has been talk about it in the past, but I think this is kind of focused in people's minds. I know some people like, for example, Philippa Whitford.
Yeah.
For the SNP has spoken about it. So I think it's something that we should be seeing more discussion of. Mm-hmm. I do think that this crisis will change things.
Oh, no, unquestionably, it already has. Of course, even like going, they can't go to Westminster. They can't. It's a breeding ground for the coronavirus. They can't go back there and be safe.
What's the things?
They have to work from a distance, but it's so completely ill-prepared. And considering they were voting on going with the traditional voting of going into the lobbies and taking 15, 20 minutes, now they should just be able to do it on their smartphones or whatever, because
the First Minister's question time was done online for the first time ever.
Yeah. Okay.
Minister's questions in the Scottish Parliament. So, but no, that's not what I was talking about in terms of making changes to society.
Sure.
And how major crises tend to have major repercussions, major political consequences. So I think the nearest parallel, and certainly the one that the Tories are always going about with like the Blitz spirit and nonsense like that, it's the Second World War. And the Second World War changed the society in the United Kingdom. And at the first election after, the voting public didn't reward the Conservative Party. Mm-hmm. Winston Churchill for seeing them through the Second World War. What they did was they voted for the Labour Party because it had this message of transformative change. This is how this society needs to change, because we have sacrificed, because we've seen that the war has caused us to see that society has to change, and it has to change in ways to make it more equal, to make it more fair, to stop the rise of that kind of extremism that led to the rise of Nazi Germany. So they had this programme of nationalisation, of the introduction of the NHS, and they were poised to deliver that message at the end of the Second World War. So they reaped the political advantage of it. And I think in Scotland, I think it's the independence movement that's best placed to deliver that message of transformative change, change for the better, after we get through this crisis. And I think that will be very attractive to people, because this crisis is telling us that the United Kingdom isn't working. No. Yeah. And yet we're going to be faced with years and years and years more of this Conservative government that has a vested interest in keeping things exactly the same as they are. And people will want change after we've gone through this collective experience. And I think that the people who are best placed to take advantage of that are the ones who've got a coherent and consistent message. And I think it's the independence movement in Scotland.
Yeah. And I've been reading a lot of your columns. I was very amused by the one you did about Prince Charles coming into, Tell us more of your reflections on that. Just
for a knighthood, isn't it?
But it's so indicative of how Scotland is just seen as this dumping ground, or this place to
But no, I mean, it's Another thing about, it was right that Catherine Calderwood, the Scottish, the chief medical officer, had to resign because she broke her own rules.
Yeah.
She broke the rules that she was saying to everybody else: don't visit your second home. Protect vulnerable rural communities. Don't spread the virus into places that don't already have it. And she broke her own rules. It was right and proper that she had to go.
Yeah.
There was a kind of a media feeding frenzy about Catherine Calderwood. They were seeing her as a way that they could attack the Scottish government, basically. And yet,
and is she a civil servant or?
She's a servant. She's not a politician.
Okay.
But when Charles Windsor, and I've now resolved not to use these titles.
I know. Well, I was laughing about that because when I remember when I used to write for Newsnet, I would always put the royal titles in quotation marks, like the Duke or the Earl or so.
I remember that was a discussion that we had actually when back. Oh God, it takes me back in the day about we weren't going to use these silly titles for people. We were using it, but anyway, there was, like I said, there was a media feeding frenzy when Catherine Calderwood, went to her second home. Now, she didn't take the virus. Charles did.
Yeah.
Charles Windsor took the virus to Deeside when, after the instruction was given not to visit your holiday home, he went there anyway with his entourage, because this is a man that can't even put his own toothpaste on his own toothbrush, and not only that, but I heard from people who work in the health service up in Aberdeenshire, up in Grampian, that an acute respiratory infection team had to leave their posts to go to travel to his home to test him and his entourage, which meant that for several hours this acute respiratory infection team wasn't available for local people who would have needed it. And then I've also heard, now I don't know if they've done this or not, but normal protocol when there's a senior member of the royal family in residence on Deeside is that an intensive care bed is kept spare just in case one of them need it. Now, I don't know if that's true. Grampian, I think the National was trying to get Grampian Health Board to confirm this or deny it, and they wouldn't respond to them. Which I think is quite telling that they wouldn't speak about it at all. Yeah. But if that's true, and an intensive care bed has to be kept in reserve for Charles Windsor, that's outrageous, because he is depriving the people of Aberdeenshire of an intensive care bed at a time where we know that intensive care beds are in short supply. And that's utterly unforgivable. And yet, that's just been kind of, let's just not talk about that. Let's all go for Catherine Calderwood. Now, if we want to attack Catherine Calderwood, fine, because she broke the rules. But why are you letting other people off with it as well?
Yeah.
So it's this double standards that runs right through the very heart of the media in Scotland. It just pisses me off.
I know. What do you think the solution for that to that is? I mean, even assuming we can get independence in the next couple of years, I don't, who knows? But I mean, do you think it's a different regulatory framework? I mean, is the whole? I mean, should we have divert the money that goes to the BBC to a fund to fund independent journalism?
I think in some other countries, like for example in Norway, now they obviously have issues about language because they want to make sure that there's a thriving press in Norwegian. Only 5 million people speak Norwegian, so that's an issue for them. And they have a system of funding newspapers, but it's done according to that in a way to make sure that. I mean, one of the things, the glaring inequities of the press in Scotland is that, for example, we know that half the population in Scotland support independence, but only the National and the National and Sunday, 38 daily and Sunday newspapers in this country support independence. The media is hugely biased against a strand of political thought, which is mainstream in Scotland. And that's not right, because it means that the media is not a mirror that's held up to society. It's this sort of distortion, and I think it would be. I'm not sure that there's certainly other European models that can be followed, but I think it would be prudent for Scotland to invest public money in the provision of newspapers to make sure that the whole range of political ideas within Scotland are properly represented.
Yeah, and the whole notion
is, and to get back to the point about
Sure.
Charles Windsor, Scotland is easily the least monarchist part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scotland isn't, but republicanism in Scotland just hardly ever gets a look in the media.
Yeah.
It hardly ever gets a look in. It's still kind of regarded as being not respectable, yet probably half the population would be quite happy not to have a monarch at all.
Yeah.
And most of the rest don't really care that much.
Yeah.
It's only those of a particularly staunch persuasion that are really keen. We know that they're a minority.
Had there been polls commissioned on that? I mean, I always see it as a kind of is the Queen popular, and she has a certain popularity level for why I don't know, but obviously that would be more heavily weighted in England. Has there been? Do you know of any Scotland?
Well, I can't remember the exact numbers, but certainly that Scotland was considerably less pro-monarchy than anywhere else in the United Kingdom. I think 28% said that they wanted a republic, and a large chunk of other people said that they weren't particularly interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what these polls don't gauge is the depth of engagement, if you like, with the royal family. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's kind of indicative of the true feeling in Scotland was the reaction when we had the royal wedding. Mm-hmm. When Kate and Will got married. And I always thought that was just totally out of order, by the way, when Charles and Diana decided to call the heir to the throne William. Also, we're having another King Billy. Thank you for your sensitivity there. By the by. But anyway, there was, I mean, the BBC was obviously, trying to G up interest in this event, and it was just a complete, just nobody cared in Scotland.
Yeah.
It was actually one. And I just burst out laughing when I saw it. I think it was on Report of Scotland. It was they obviously had been told by management, you've got to have so many stories about the royal wedding.
Yeah.
And on Report in Scotland, they had some guy. What they were doing was asking this expert in antiques about tatty royal souvenirs. And how much would you get for these if you flogged them on eBay? That was the only angle they could find, But when there was that big thing about having street parties, and the only street party in Scotland was the one in St Andrews where Will and Kate went to university, which in Scotland, by the way, widely has a reputation of being the university that people that posh English kids who are too thick for Oxford and Cambridge go to.
Okay.
So everybody that's watching it went to St Andrews is probably going to kill me for that, but that's the reputation it's got. Yeah. But and the only street party that was organised anywhere in Scotland apart from that was that one in Kelvingrove Park in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. I think it was like 10,000, 15,000 people went to it. It was the Fuck the Royal Wedding party. So that one never got reported by Nicholas Mitchell. Don't know why.
Yeah, what is it? You're talking about the nauseating sycophancy?
Sycophancy.
Yeah.
It just annoys me. Nicholas.
It's terrible.
It annoys me so much. It's just like there's just something about him that just. I mean, and there's other royal reporters and they don't annoy me anything like as much as he does. There's just something about Nicholas Mitchell that just.
Yeah,
I've taken myself a pacifist, but honestly, if there's a heaven, if there's a paradise, I want to spend all eternity poking Nicholas Mitchell in the arse with a sharp.
Yeah, I love that line. Yeah, I've taken to watching old British Pathé films on and just these nauseating stuff of anytime the Queen goes to the bathroom, they have a thing about it and everything else so wonderful and and it's and you just realize how the British public has just been imbued with this for forever, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Peter is realising it. My husband, because obviously he's from America, and he's just started living here, and he's like, for God, it's like North Korea. The way that they go on about the royal family on the BBC.
Yeah.
It's this gushing you don't dare criticise them, not even when they're consorting with paedophiles.
I know. That's what's so scary too. And you think, how long has this pedophilia gone on? I mean, has it always been that way? I mean, it's just part of part of being a royal is that you can.
It's one of the reasons why I want Scottish independence, because I would like a chance to vote in a republic.
Yeah.
And I think there's more of a chance of getting that in an independent Scotland than there is, in the United Kingdom. But it's like a lot of other things. It's like, I mean, you can't. I think it's important not to weigh down the cause of independence with too much baggage. Mm-hmm. Because we all have very different visions of what we would like Scotland to be, and I would like an independent Scotland might not necessarily be what you want or what someone else wants, or and once we start, the danger is that we start falling out with ourselves before we've actually got there. It's a bit like having an argument about who gets to go on the swings and who gets to go on the roundabout before you've got the swing park.
Yeah.
So we have to get the swing park first.
Yeah. We
can argue about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the things I would like to achieve.
Well, I tell you what, I'm just you've seen my Constitution platform.
Yes.
And we've been my friends who were really good coders have developed the digital covenant. Digitalcovenant.scot. Go ahead and sign it when you can, and it's linked and it's underpinned with blockchain technology, which means that if you make a signature, it's absolutely confirmable that that it's yours, and it can never be changed, and you can verify it in perpetuity. And it's basically So we're looking to get 3 million signatures on this digital covenant, and so and it also can be the basis of a platform for governance. Because there's just no reason why we should ever again have to vote with paper. And also, I mean, with the and at least for the next couple of years until there's a vaccine, people can't even assemble. You can't have a party convention. You can't go out and knock on doors, and it has to be done.
That's one of the reasons why I'm not too upset. Well, obviously I'm upset about it, but I'm not devastated by the fact that we're not actively campaigning. The Scottish Government said that, I know there's a lot of controversy about how committed they are towards having another independence referendum, but I'm not too concerned about them saying let's not have one in the middle of this coronavirus epidemic, because, as I said earlier on, we do have this problem with the media in Scotland.
Yeah.
The media is overwhelmingly biased against independence, and the way that we campaign is through face-to-face interactions. That's what, as a mass grassroots movement, that we're really good at, and that's how we got support for independence to increase to 45% in 2014.
Yeah,
that's precisely the kind of campaigning we can't do at the moment.
Right.
But the mainstream media, the BBC and the newspapers, they can sail on regardless. Their message. So we would be fighting with both hands tied behind our back if we tried to go ahead at the moment, So I think it's sensible that we kind of not say, right, we want an independence referendum in the middle of this epidemic, I certainly think that we can use this time productively.
No, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with setting up this blockchain format. We can have an online constitutional convention where everybody participates, and you can get people can say, oh, do you want a republic? You can have people vote. Again.
The problems though I think with that is that there's a low level of engagement with online stuff compared to traditional media forms in the media, and that's a problem, that people don't engage with it. That's why, for all that you might be influential for writing a blog, if you have a platform in a print newspaper, you're able to reach an audience that you can't reach just online.
Yeah.
Also, I think that there is a barrier of trust as well. There's something people trust, a pencil and a bit of paper. In a way, I think that they're far more suspicious about a computer because there's so many different layers of of things that they don't know.
I understand that, but with this with this technology, when you vote, you say, or even a signature, it's there, it's indelible, and it's verifiable, but it's still secret. So I mean, it has all the advantages of the paper-based, which just in terms of being secret. But I mean, we can't.
I'm not disputing that that's the
case. Sure. Yeah. No, your point was well taken, though.
The point is that it's just that there is an awful lot of suspicion about online things and how secure is things, because people have heard about stuff being hacked and all that, and then you get all these mad conspiracy theories and the like, and it kind of, because you have a whole layer of things which are, if you like, beyond the experience or the knowledge of ordinary people, it's harder for them to trust it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a kind of a barrier to engagement. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's something that is definitely, that's where the future lies.
Yeah.
But I think there's a long process of education to go on before we.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And let's see. And what do you? It seems to me as if the attacks against the SNP are becoming more vicious. I mean, they always have been. But it's almost like they want to, make the SNP look bad. So just given that how completely incompetent the Westminster government is at this point, that they're trying to, bring down the perceptions of the Scottish government to, so that they compare less favorably.
The closer that we get to, see, we're now in a Scotland where, if we don't get a majority for independence in an opinion poll, we're disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that was unthinkable a few years ago, that we would have majorities for independence in an opinion poll.
Mm-hmm.
So independence is now a very real prospect in a way that it wasn't before. And, the likes of Jackson Carlaw or the Labour Party in Scotland, they know as well as we do that most people don't engage with these issues until they've got a reason to.
Yeah.
That reason comes in the shape of an official campaign with a date. This is when the independence referendum's going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's
when people will start to think about these issues and engage with them. And when they do, they know that they've got nothing to offer.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to tell us? What are they going to say? Scotland, we love you. You're an equal and valued partner in the family of nations. I mean, really? You said that the last time. Let's see how that one turned out. They can't credibly promise us all sorts of extra powers for the Scottish Parliament, because again, they did that the last time. And what happened? So their cupboard's really bare.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had the carrot and they had the stick in 2014, and now they've just got the stick.
Yeah.
And that doesn't play well with people. So they don't want it. So their only strategy at the moment is to try and prevent a referendum happening at all.
Yeah.
Because if they can stop a referendum happening, then eventually maybe support for independence will go away by itself. That's what they're hoping. It's not much to hope on, That's why they constantly attack the SNP. So the closer that independence becomes a realistic prospect, the more they have to attack the SNP, because the SNP is the political vehicle by which a referendum will get delivered. So they have to try and destroy credibility in the SNP in the hope that the next election, or the one after that, that they can reduce the SNP's vote share to the point where an independence referendum is no longer a realistic prospect, because that's the only strategy they've got left now.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see more attacks on the SNP. I do wish that people within the independence movement would kind of wind their necks in a bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily particularly thrilled with the lack of progress towards an independence referendum myself, but this Alex Salmond versus Nicola Sturgeon thing, the guy at the centre of it, Alex Salmond, is not speaking out, and until such time as he does, we are speculating. We're completely in the dark about what evidence he does or doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just wait until we know what the evidence is, and then we can deal with it. So at the moment, there's no point, in going on about it particularly. I think we should just kind of wind our necks in a bit and just deal with what's on our plates on a daily basis.
Yeah, there's enough there already.
And deal with things. I think the secret of intelligent politics is to deal with things at the right time, and it's recognising when the time is right to deal with a particular issue. So, and I don't think that particular issue is best dealt with at the moment.
But what do you think are some other ways that we can use this time? In terms of productivity, and just in terms of in advancing the cause. I mean, I think what we're doing now, being able to, because we're all stuck.
I've been using this time binge watching Netflix. I don't know.
No, but it's been fascinating to see watching in the media, like all whereas before you'd have these big studios and now everybody's everybody's doing what we're doing, as Kevin said, the rest of the media is caught. As Kevin was saying, the rest of the media is caught up with us. So it's
I think I've been definitely blogging a lot more. I'm writing a lot more. I'm going to start hopefully doing podcasts again from home, and I'll be interviewing people, for the podcasts.
Yeah, you can do it through Independence Live as well.
Yeah, but I don't. The problem is at the moment, the sound quality on this is really rubbish for a podcast. So I've ordered a microphone, which hopefully should arrive within the next few days, and then we'll see if we can sort something out. So anyway, but yeah, so I think what we need to do is to talk, to think about the kind of things that we would want to see change, because things will change after this crisis is over, and this crisis will end, And I think that's what we should be using this time to do, is to think about the ways in which we think society should change once this crisis is past. And so, for example, we already mentioned one of them, the universal
basic income.
Basic income.
Yeah.
So things like that, I think, are a really useful way to spend time to talk about ways in which what we want independence for. What's it about? What's the point of independence? It should be about, if it's about making Scotland a better society, well, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by a better Scotland? And what sort of concrete ways can we get there? So I think it's things like tackling inequality. And one of the things I'm thinking about recently is, because I live in a top floor flat, right? I don't have access to a garden, and I've seen a lot of criticism of people going to public parks. And a lot of this criticism is coming from people who do have gardens.
Yeah.
And it's making me think about how things like access to sunshine and open space is a basic human right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we should talk about things like that, because I get out to take the dog for a pee. I don't go sunbathing. I'm Scottish. I don't sunbathe anyway. But it's things like that. It's making you think about things in a way that you maybe never thought about them before. I would never have thought before about how access to the open air was a fundamental human right. And now I'm thinking about that. And so I think we should maybe think, well, how do we achieve that, and how do we make sure that is written into the fabric of an independent Scotland? That we should make sure that everybody in Scotland has equality of access to open spaces. It makes us think about things like land rights and stuff like that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and then land redistribution. I mean, that's going to be a big one.
A big one as well. Yeah, and that we can start with Charles Windsor's estate, I think. Yeah. So there's lots of ways that I think we can use this time productively. Although, of course, most people said that they were going to do all these things when they went into lockdown. They were going to learn a new language. They were going to do all these, and they were going to do all these repairs and decoration and stuff inside the house, and they were just sat laying on the sofa in their underwear watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely putting weight on, because that's all I'm doing is just sitting eating crap all day.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of overweight people once this is over.
Yeah. Yeah, and what are what are the other things? So you'd like to see the republic? You'd like to see more social equality? You should, more
Yeah.
basic. And how would you see the parliament working differently, or the elections, or what kind of structural governance things changes would you like to see?
I think, we've not really spoken much about what sort of form of Scottish Parliament should take, but I think we should have. I'm not so sure that just having one chamber is such a good idea. I think maybe we do need some sort of oversight on the workings of the Parliament, and the exact form that takes. I'm open to persuasion on what that should be. It's something that makes sure that every part of Scotland and all the different segments of the Scottish population are properly represented with some sort of, I don't know, a citizens' assembly or something like that. I'm not really sure, but I think a second chamber is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, in some form, not necessarily.
Yeah, some form. I'm open to persuasion.
Not a replication of the House of Lords.
Certainly not. Well, it shouldn't be a jobs for the boys kind of patronage thing at all. Not at all. No. It needs to be accountable and it needs to be representative. And that's always been the biggest reason for wanting independence, is because Westminster fundamentally is not accountable to the people of Scotland. That's why they can do what they do, because they're not accountable to us, so they have no comeback.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that governments are accountable.
Yeah.
That we can make sure that they know that there are consequences. It's like, this week is the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath, and that's what that was all about. It was about saying that if the king doesn't do what the people expect of the king, then he's not the king anymore.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is all about.
And of course, the BBC pumped out huge amounts of information about the 700th anniversary of the.
Yeah. Well, I wrote an article about that, and
I did. I saw it. Yeah.
And that was my point. That there was stamps, there was commemorative stamps, there was a £2 coin, there was TV documentaries, there was a series of events throughout the year, including several in the Westminster Parliament. There was a big ceremony with David Cameron, the Prime Minister, and Elizabeth Windsor, the head of state, and there was a flypast by the RAF, and a procession of wains, the specially designed flags, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 1976. That was huge,
And there was all sorts of stuff went on. And what we got in Scotland is, and this is not to denigrate Billy Kay in any shape or form, I'm a huge fan of his work. We've got a 3-part documentary on BBC Radio Scotland about the Declaration of Arbroath by Billy Kay. That's it. That's, and fine, you would expect, this is the thrust of the article on Tuesday, was that you would expect that from the British state. The British state doesn't want to remind Scotland that it is heir to a distinctive constitutional tradition of its own, one which recognises that the sovereignty of the people is paramount and not the sovereignty of the crown. It's in the English tradition. So they don't particularly want to remind Scotland of that. They want Scotland. There was a Glasgow councillor, Mary Hunter, and she tweeted, the most famous passage, "As long as 100 of us remain alive," that one.
Yeah.
And people were tweeting back at her, that someone should remind her that Braveheart's just a movie. Because they genuinely didn't know what it was. They thought this isn't Braveheart, that's just a movie.
Yeah.
And people are so ignorant of their own history. And
what in school? I mean,
really, was the point of the article on Tuesday was that the Scottish government has done bugger all about the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath. And how can we turn round to like the BBC or the British government or British institutions and say, why haven't you done anything, to commemorate the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath when you did all this for the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta? And all they have to do is to turn around and say to us, well, the Scottish government didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Scottish Government didn't do anything. And I've heard, actually, and I thought it was going to be today, but it wasn't, so I think it might be tomorrow, that a Scottish Government minister has been prompted to write a response to my article that was in the National.
Oh, okay.
So I'll wait that with interest to see what they've got to say for themselves.
Yeah. But basically, of the thing that the Scottish Government didn't do anything. They did
very little, and I'm sure tomorrow that they'll be saying, they'll be trying to take justification. They'll be trying to take the credit for certain initiatives that have been privately organised. I'm quite sure they'll be part of that. But they should have been on this 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And saying this is what we want to do, and they should have been on to the Royal Mint to say, where's our commemorative coin?
Yeah.
Should have been on to the post office, where's our commemorative set of stamps?
Yeah.
They should have been doing all that, because the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath could have been an amazing opportunity to show to Europe, we're not just some region of England that wants to secede. We are an ancient nation with our own constitutional history and traditions that go back for hundreds of years, and we gave you, the people of Europe, the beginnings of this concept of the doctrine of popular sovereignty. We are where it started. This is where it came from.
It very heavily informed the U.S. Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, exactly. And that could have been a really powerful statement.
Absolutely.
Scotland's constitutional identity.
Yeah.
But tumbleweed in the Scottish Parliament.
Maybe it assumed it. Well, it's not a reserve power, or I don't know. Maybe
I think what it is that I think what the strategy of the current Scottish Government is that they want to achieve independence by demonstrating that they can be a competent administration of a devolved Scotland.
Yeah.
Trust us, we're competent, we're managerial. But it takes more than that to lead a country to independence. It takes an awful lot more than competent management. You have to feed the spirit, and you have to feed the soul.
Absolutely.
And you have to show people that, as one of the phrases that I use in the piece was that, a nation that doesn't understand, a nation that doesn't know its past has nothing to pass on to the future.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And it's important that we, as a movement, have that kind of organic connection. This is why we are justified in having this independence campaign, because of these constitutional traditions, about these beliefs that we have in things like, the sovereignty of the people and not of the crown. And this is where it started, and that's why we want to celebrate this. Because that's what animates us today. To say that Scotland is more than just, North Britain. So,
question, Ian Condi, what did PS?
PS? What do you mean PS?
Could you repeat that, Kevin?
MPs.
Sorry.
Well, I don't really know much about it. I understand it's not that they're all getting a cheque for £10,000. I believe it's money that they have to, because their staff all have to work remotely now, so they have to equip themselves for home office working, and they will have to produce invoices to. Listen, I'm not trying to justify it. I've got no dog in this fight at all, but that's my understanding. But what I would say, it's not a good look at the moment, And I think sometimes the optics of things are far more important, and I think this may be one of those occasions.
And you wonder, because they're going to have to change all of these traditions. If they're going to vote on anything, they have to be able to vote remotely.
Well, exactly, and it's understandable that people who have no... Well, it's like, for example, just now, right, I want to start doing the podcasts from home that I used to do in the National's office. The National's office is closed now. Can't go into the National's office, but I don't have the equipment that I need to do the podcast at home. So I have to buy that equipment, and I'm buying it out of my own pocket. But it's legitimate to say that workers should not have to dip into their own pockets to buy the tools that they need to do the job that their employer should be providing for them. So if the staff of an MP or anybody else's staff requires equipment in order to do their job from home, to do their job remotely, then it should be their employer that provides that equipment for them. So that's the justification for this £10,000. But like I said, it's not a good look at the moment when everybody else is worried about, their jobs, their income, about
paying rent.
All of us, I mean, I'm luckier than most. I can still write from home, but I've had a big hit to my income because of this.
Yeah.
And there's other people that have been far worse affected than I have.
Yeah.
And we're all losing money. There's people that have lost their jobs, and yet we just see MPs saying, "Oh, here, I've got another cheque for £10,000." It's really not a good look.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about how the sectarian divide could be resolved over time? I mean, I told you before, I spent time in Glasgow and East End, in the early '90s, and it seemed so. I just didn't understand it, and it was just, the whole Rangers Celtic divide, stuff like that. Do you see? You wonder if maybe there's a means to get a broader understanding between the different, between the sectarian divide. What do you think about that?
People talk a lot about it, but to be honest, it's nothing like it used to be. Really, I come from the Catholic community in the west of Scotland. My family. I'm the world's worst Catholic, by the way. Born without the gene for shame and guilt, so it just never took. But anyway. And that, I remember thinking that when I was a kid, because my aunt, my mum's sister, and this was in the early 60s, she was the first person in her family to go to university. My aunt, she's passed away now, she died a couple of years ago. And Una was the first person in her family to go to university. She was a really intelligent woman. And Una, my grandmother, my mother and Una's mother, passed away when I was 6 months old. So I never knew her. But this affected Una really badly. How can there be a God if God took my mother away?
Yeah. She
gave up. She just was not interested in God or religion or anything like that. She would have nothing to do with it. For the rest of her life, she had nothing to do with it. She went to university and she wanted to be, like I said, she was a really intelligent woman, and she wanted to study maths and economics at Glasgow University. Mm-hmm. And we asked her, the careers advisor, what do you want to do this for? And she said she wanted to work for a bank as an economist. And the guy told her, well, you can forget that because you're a Catholic. Mm-hmm. You will never get a job as an economist with a Scottish bank because you're Catholic, despite the fact that she was an atheist.
Yeah.
And that was what made me start to think when I was a kid that my Aunt Una, who I knew didn't believe in God, was told that she couldn't get a particular job because she was a Catholic. But she wasn't a Catholic because you have to believe in God to be a Catholic.
Yeah, exactly.
How could she be a Catholic? And it made me start to think that it's not about religion's just how they tell one another apart. It's not about personal beliefs. It's about something else entirely. And that kind of thing that happened to my aunt, you won't get a job in a Scottish bank because you are a Catholic. That wouldn't happen today.
Yeah.
And people talk an awful lot about sectarianism in Scotland, but it's a shadow of its former self. Yeah. It doesn't have anything like the power that it used to have. And it is diminishing slowly, not as fast as I would like it to. Mm-hmm. It's still a feature in our society. And it's kind of maintained by various institutions in Scotland, not the least of which are football clubs. I would abolish both Celtic and Rangers if I had my way, if I was dictator of the world. But
well, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's no sporting events for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
So that's me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, really enjoyed the conversation. Need to feed my boys, but any time.
I can hardly see you now.
Okay, yeah, it's getting dark outside, but yeah, well, I'll let us know if you want to do an interview, or I'll contact you soon if we want to do another one. So the door is always open.
Good stuff. All right.
All right. Real pleasure, and give my best to your husband.
Will do. You take care.
All right. All right.
Bye.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too.